So, hi. Hi, shalom, shalom, shalom. Okay, there's a chair here. That's a chair there. I have one more copy. I have one more copy of this for use during the class. And obviously, the most probably can use it is 3. You need it on this side? You need it? Yeah, you might have.
We'll see.
You might have to make use of it. Yes, it is the book that we're learning from. Okay. So here's that. And so the first 2 classes of this year, after the holidays, this is the 3rd class. I brought in these overview questions. So the way it works is that the page in inner space where Rabbi Kaplan speaks about these things is on that's how every line begins. So you see page 11, how many levels in the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Page 13 is what is Tzimtzum. Page 16. So it's really a guide to the book. We've gone through some of them. The truth is we could go through the entire page and a half and then go back and still not have done everything, go back over it. So I think it's very useful that you can actually use this as a map to the book. And what we talk about in class is like a little bit like what it means. So the questions are fairly simple and matter of fact, so that we actually know, like we have a grounding in the vocabulary, and you know where to go in the book to get it. We got up to the Sfirot, and we were dealing with a little thing here in the middle of the page in gray that I gave out. It's the 3rd page of your sets that you have there. It's a page from Rabbi Kaplan's. You don't have colors in yours. I just have colors in mine. But you can do that at home. So this is a page from Rabbi Kaplan's Sefer Yetzirah. And there was one thing I didn't get to look up, because there was one problem we had with one thing. It was a detail, and I didn't get to be able to look it up. But the point is that it's a very amazing thing. It's like the whole Sefer Yetzirah in one chart. And it revolves around the idea of 32, the number 32. That there's 32 times that Hashem's name Elohim appears in the 1st chapter of Genesis. And of those 32, there are 7 that say that Hashem saw, Vayar Elohim. And there are 3 that say that God made, Vayas Elohim. And there are 12 there are 10, which is 9, actually 9 plus 1, that's implied that it says Vayomer Elohim. So the 9 plus 1 correspond to the 10 Sfirot. And the 3 and the 7 and the 12, which add up to 22, correspond to the 22 letters. And there's some beautiful equivalencies. So that the whole system of Torah can be encoded in very simple letters And that gives us an entry into deeper and deeper levels of mathematics in the Torah. It's not really what I would make this class into. We're not into the mathematics of the Torah as much as the consciousness, the inner space is the idea. The reason the book is called Inner Space is that it's supposed to allow us to go in with the information that the Kabbalah gives us and refine ourselves, using information and wisdom to refine ourselves so we become worthy of becoming more godly, becoming more vessels for godliness. So it's not a knowledge, it's not an external knowledge, Kabbalah, and with which mathematics might imply just a bunch of numbers. But it's numbers that lead inside to the very way that we're made. And that's, he touches upon some things of that nature in his commentary on Sefer Yetzirah. And this little chart is just the numbers themselves. So, so that led me to the Gaon of Vilna, which is what I got on this page here. The Gaon of Vilna was very much a master of Torah, of the Torah of Sod. Basically, 85% of whatever he wrote was a commentary on the deeper, hidden aspects of the Torah. It's a one-page thing. In other words, he wrote commentary on the Zohar, on the Tikkunei Zohar, Tikkunei Zohar Chadash, the Sefer Yetzirah, the parts of the Zohar itself. So he was very, very prolific, and he had a lightning mind. And so when he saw the first Mishnah in Sefer Yetzirah, which you have at the top of these pages in Hebrew, which I'll read to you, so he saw the incredible system of numbers that was implied here. Okay, so you see the first Mishnah at the top of the page is called B'shloshim U'Shtayim, which sometimes is written Bilamed Bet, because Lamed is 30 and 2 and Bet is 2. So B'shloshim U'Shtayim, with 32 Netivot Pliot Chochmah, with 32 wondrous paths of wisdom. Chakak, and then there's a number of names of Hashem. Yah, Adonai Tzevaot, Elohei Yisrael, Elohim Chayim, Melech Olam, El Shaddai, Rechum V'Hanun, Ram V'Nisa, Shochen Ad V'Kadosh, Shemo, Marom V'Kadosh Hu. All that is he who did what we're about to say. So with 33 or 32 or in 32 pathways of wisdom, Hashem did something. What did he do? Ubara et olamo, he created his world. Bishlosha Sfarim, that's a misprint there. It should be just Sfarim with a Yud instead of an Ein. The Sefer, Usfar, the Sipur. There's Sefer is written, is letters. Sfar is cipher in English. Cipher is letters. Sipur is telling, is communication. So there's the written letters, there are numbers, and there's the communication. They all revolve around the same root, the word Sefer. So my point here is just to go into a little bit of the 32. So the Gaon of Vilna writes, and you have it in English here. B'shloshim v'shtayim, commenting on the first Mishnah. K'moshe mufurash b'Mishnah Bet, as per the second Mishnah, immediately after in the Sefer Yetzirah. The Sefer Yetzirah is made up of Mishnayot. 10 sfirot without substance and 22 foundation letters. 3 mothers, 7 doubles, and 12 simple or elementals. In Hebrew, Eser sfirot belima, ve'esrim u'shtayim otiot yesod, foundation letters, 22 foundation letters. Gimel amot, 3 mothers, Zayin kfulot, 7 doubles, and Yud Beit pshutot, in 12 elementals. So that's the 3 mothers, which is what the first few chapters of Sefer Yetzirah deals with at length, is Aleph, Mem, and Shin. whatever reason, they're called the mother letters. And the double letters are Beged Kafrat. Beged is Beit, Gimel, Dalet. Kafrat or Kaparat is Chaf, Pei, Resh, Taf. That's 7 letters, each of which changes when you put a dagesh in the middle. It becomes Ba, Va, G, R, D, Z, Z. A soft dalet is a Z. And then you have Ka, Cha. You have Pei, Fa. You have Resh. We don't know how to change Resh. We don't have that anymore. We don't know it. We don't have that. And Taf, Thaf. So it's the of Taf is different than the of Dalet. One is a soft like in the word the, and one is a harder one like in the word that, or maybe actually thought. Thought. That's a taf without a dagesh, or without a dagesh should be a. That's why you get the name Roth in English from the word rot in Hebrew, because Roth is actually the actual. Whatever the case, you don't need all this, but just want to make it meaningful and explainable to you. So in English, 10 sfirot without substance and 22 foundation letters, total of 32. These 32 are the length of the circumference of a circle, the diameter of 10. So simple mathematics. Diameter, not radius, right? What's a diameter? What's a radius?
Diameter.
Diameter is across the whole thing, is 10. If you have a diameter of 10, then you have a circumference of not exactly 32. That's the whole point. We're going to see that it's 10 times pi. But the point is that that's the relationship. So he says the reason they're divided into 10 and 22 is because the 10 of the diameter divides into 3 mothers and 7 doubles. Okay. And also the circumference of a circle whose diameter is 7 is 22. And the circumference of a circle whose diameter is 3 is 10. It's all approximations, but it's very interesting in terms of the splitting up of the letters of the Aleph Bet, right? And the 10 sfirot, and the numbers 3, 10, 7, 12, 22, altogether 32. So they're like interlaced with each other in a very interesting way. So getting from the general approximate number 32, we have a verse in the first book of Kings, in the building of the Beit HaMikdash, in chapter 7, verse 23. And Shlomo made the tank of cast metal, 10 amot from rim to rim, that was his diameter, completely round. Its height was 5 amot, with a line, a kav, a circumference, in other words, of 30 amot. So in the Hebrew, if you read Chaf Gimel, Vayas et hayam mutzak eser ba'ama, misfato ad sfato, from its rim to its rim, it was 10. A goal, saviv, all round. V'chamesh ba'ama komato, and it was 5 high. V'kava, or kav, and it's written like that in the Torah, it's written v'kava, but it's supposed to be read as v'kav. You got it? It's called a kri and a ktiv. The ktiv, the way it's written, is v'kava, and but you don't read that when we read the Bible. We read v'kav, which means a line or a circumference. So its kav is shalshim ba'ama, was 30 in circumference. Yasov oto saviv, it surrounded it completely. So it was a round top and a square bottom. It had 3 oxen facing out this way, 3 this way, 3 this way. And then on their backs was resting this huge thing that held 20,000 gallons of water. It's a huge, one of the wonders of the ancient world is to cast something like that from bronze that doesn't crack, right? So, but the information that's given us in the verse, it's that it was 10 in diameter and 30 all around. So you see then the mathematics down at the bottom of the page. The formula for the circumference C, my computer made a C with a circle around it instead of just a C. A C of a circle is pi times the diameter, pi times d. And so we know pi is 3.1415. For simplicity's sake, the simple estimate of C equals 3 times d suffices. That is, we replace pi, which is a difficult number to calculate, with 3. We see an example of this common approximation in the verse above, because it only says 10 diameter and 30 circumference. We also see the word kav is seemingly superfluous. It would have been enough to write ushloshim ba'ama yasovoto, and it had a, and it was around about, it was 30, but it adds the word kav. It would have been enough to say 30 amot roundabout. Moreover, the word kav is written one way and read another. So it hints to a built-in correction factor, which will yield an exact circumference. So ABCD is common estimate is 3 times d equals C, 3 times diameter equals circumference. As per our verse, 3 times 10 equals 30. Precise formula is pi times diameter equals circumference. Correction factor, multiply 30 by pi over 3. So pi is 3.1 over 3, and that's, you multiply 30, get your thinking cap on. So that's the next line. Pi over 3 times 30 equals pi over 3 times 3d equals pi times d. It works out if you think about it. Pi times diameter is circumference. Our verse is written kava, gematria 111, but reads kav, gematria 106. 111 over 106 is 1.047169, which is exactly pi over 3. The true circumference is therefore pi times diameter, which is 31, which is exactly 111 over 106 times 30. It's a famous thing that the ancient world, they knew the secret of pi. You need pi to build buildings. And that the hint for it is in the building of the Beit HaMikdash in King Solomon's casting of the bronze tank. So keep the pages. The interesting thing that we want to do now is one last thing. I won't bother you with numbers anymore after this. Is, let me use yours. So these are the 10 sefirot. So they're connected by 3 horizontals corresponding to the Aleph, Mem, and Shin. 7 verticals. Each one is separate. This is 1, and this is now 2 on this side. 2 on that side makes 4. In the middle, you have from Keter to Tiferet, that's 5. Tiferet to Yesod, 6. And Yesod to Malchut is 7. 7 corresponding to the 7 double letters. And there's 12 diagonals. I'm not exactly sure how to do it, but it comes out to 12 diagonals. Thank you. So 3, 7, and 12, 10, right? In the base of Mikdash, you have 12 showbreads. You have 7 branches of the candelabra of the menorah. Where do you have 3? You have 12 and 7. You now have to have 3 to complete the 22 letters of the Torah. So the Aron HaKodesh, the Holy of Holies, there's a 2 tablets of the covenant. There's 2 keruvim, so that's the 2. The 3 is the 1, which is the light of Hashem that comes into between the space between the keruvim. So you have 12, 7, and 3. And as I mentioned last week, I didn't bring it in, but it's really an amazing, I think you can get it on the web. You go to David Friedman's website in Tzfat, and I think it's something Kabbalah, and his Sefer Yetzirah series, and you'll see how he painted the whole secret of Sefer Yetzirah in a series of like 12 paintings. That's all I have to say on numbers. Okay. Did you do it?
I don't know if this is clear enough, but they're all there.
Not sure that we have to do that. Not sure we have to do that. There's an actual simpler way to do it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. She's the right number, isn't it? It's 12.
Okay. Since it's not my expertise, so I ask your indulgence that we did that. I just wanted to get past it. Okay, that was that little thing in the middle of the page, which is gray. That was page 41 and 42, and then underneath that is extra. 41 and 42 is how are the sfirot divided vertically? Which is an interesting question because it just means like, what are the sfirot? Do you know the 10 sfirot by heart? Can you place them in front of yourself and know what their names are and their relative value vis-a-vis each other? Anybody in the room want to hear that? Who's going to do it? Do it.
I'd like to hear it.
You'd like to hear it. Okay, and then what we're going to do is going to divide them, as we just did in the diagram, into 3 columns, and then go into the book itself of why it has to be divided into 3 columns and what that structure of 3 columns instead of just straight line does for us. Anyway, so the straight line is keter, if it would be such a thing. Underneath keter is what? Chokhmah. Chokhmah means wisdom, translated, but it's much more than that. It's really a word that's not just a translatable word. It's the sfirot are more than just conceptual words that we have to use in our life. They have to do with the creation of the world. But at any rate, the names are keter, crown, chokhmah, wisdom, bina, understanding. And we'll see that a little bit more as we break them up into the columns. So beneath that is chesed. Beneath that is gevura, teferet, netzach, hod, yesod, malchut. At this point, just words. When we get to the body, or the form of the body, we have keter on top, or perhaps the entire surrounding. We have chokhmah being the right brain. You have bina being the left brain. So these are 2 types of operations of consciousness. Consciousness, chokhmah consciousness, bina consciousness, right? Right brain, left brain. There's a little chart of right brain, left brain. What are the differences as they've been? All right, the right side is italicized. The left side is block letters. Why? Because the left side is verbal, analytic, symbolic. When you look at words symbolically, you look at things as symbols of other things. Whereas here, you have nonverbal. You have So what does synthetic mean as opposed to analytic? Synthesis, right? Seeing patterns. Here you have symbolic, here you have
Concrete.
Interesting, concrete. Why would right brain be concrete? Interesting.
Rabbi, does this have to do with anything like right brain, left brain people who are like artists and we're
Yeah, that's what this is. Yeah, that's what
good
this
with
is.
numbers or something?
Yeah. So here you have abstract and a logic. Abstract and a logic. Abstract is, I didn't make this up, so I'm just bringing it to you. We can think about it as we do it. Abstract thinking is said to be left brain, and analogical thinking is right brain. Analogy, finding similarities between two seemingly different sets of things, right? That's what they do in set theory, right? There's 10 apples and 10 pears. Why? So analogic, that's another type of thinking and it's much more fluidic. So here what do we have now? It's temporal and non-temporal. The left brain is caught into time and the right brain is not. We have rational and relational. Rational and relational. Digital and spatial. Logical, intuitive. Some of them make more obvious sense, and one is linear and one is holistic. So this is a chart from a book of how right brain and left brain has been mapped. And if you could separate them, it's very obviously a little bit hard to do that unless something happens to somebody and they lose certain functions. But otherwise, it's more or less just to understand that there are two different aspects of our consciousness. What?
Why do you think the right brain would have concrete in it?
I'm not sure. I have to think about it.
Is that chart taken from a psychology text?
Yeah.
Right. It's not taken from the Kabbalist.
No.
Right.
My claim is that I have an interesting thing here. Is that within our system, Yud Ke Vav Ke is right brain and Elohim is left brain. In order to create a world with distinctions, a world in which you and I and all of us have separate existence, Hashem, the Infinite One, pulled back the full revelation of his Yud Ke Vav Ke infiniteness, unending oneness, moving his quality of mercy embodied in the Yud Ke Vav Ke into the background in order to allow his quality of justice and law and order embodied in Elohim to come to the fore. This is exactly the same relationship between right and left brain. Behind the rational left brain is a super-rational right brain awareness that is oceanic and all-embracing. To its left is a little tiny serial processor brain that allows us to experience ourselves in isolation from everything else. From within our normal left brain consciousness, we perceive the right brain, if at all, as through a glass darkly. The power of meditative tefillah is that we enter into right brain nonverbal mode and yet continue to express prayer in words. Jewish tefillah is tailor-made for this because it is written in Lashon HaKodesh. In addition, the actual texts from which the prayers were put together are prophetic. They abound throughout the Siddur. Shema Yisrael, Kadosh, 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 Baruch Kevod Hashem B'Mkomo, Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, Hashem Hu Elokim, Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch, Ve'anam Ba'ed. And perhaps most important, the actual four-letter name itself, which we do not pronounce as it is written, but which is there threaded throughout every line of our prayers. This is the right brain is there everywhere, but we only have left brain eyes, right? So we don't see. Hashem is there everywhere, but we have left brain eyes, so we see walls and we see things. We see isolated. I'm not sure about the concrete yet. Okay. The name This name is the Edenic consciousness that was not lost, but rather hidden at the very core of existence, waiting to be revealed. So I want to say, the reason I'm coming here is just to make one point. This is one of the books that I've written. But left brain is not wired to be able to experience this. God could be and is standing right before us, right next to us. But we do not register his presence because we live trapped within a left brain consciousness instead of using it as it was meant to be used, as a natural complement to the right brain. Our claim is that the words of our prayers were written in a right brain state, bypassing the normal verbal level. They therefore naturally lend themselves to immediately being able to return and fly to the right brain prophetic source. And then I have this one more thing that I say here. I'm trying to find it. And it's a Sefer Yetzirah Kanz. It's Haven b'chokhmah v'chachem b'bina. It says, do bina with chokhmah and do chokhmah with bina. So do right brain and left brain and left brain and right brain. So what I bring out here, and this is the point I was trying to get at, right brain consciousness is not something that comes and goes. It's the oceanic or cosmic background behind the isolated level of left brain bina consciousness.
So that's why it's concrete.
No, that's the left is concrete. The right is concrete in this guy's thing.
Yeah, but you're saying that the right is the behind of everything. So that's the real concrete. It's like
it's just the word concrete is difficult for me.
Because we think of the physical left concrete, like the walls you were saying. But
yeah.
This is like the real concrete.
Oh, interesting. Really beautiful. Thank you. It's the oceanic cosmic level behind the isolated. Thus, when seen as opposites, Chokhmah is unified and all-embracing, but Bina is analytical and detail-oriented. However, when seen as complementary, right brain and left brain never operate in exclusion from one another. They are always inter-inclusive. Each contains an aspect of the other. On the deepest level, the Torah is all about accessing right brain via left brain in a world of left brain. Certainly, it is important to be able to disengage from the left brain in order to have a pure right brain experience. But this is always in order to return to the left brain with more right brain, more divine light, more wholeness. So there's a whole chapter just using that language to talk about ourselves in a way that we could get the sphirot out of concept into experience. That really right brain is not just it's not just associated with our right brain, our right hemisphere in the physical. It's a type of consciousness that's perhaps embodied here, and that right in Kabbalah is that kind of a thing, and left brain is analytical, etc. But the point is that it's not exclusive. It's going on at the same time, but one is the background, the context, and the other is what we are aware of. So if we can float back into, and that's what meditation is about, into that, we don't even know how to get there. We don't know how to call it when we are there. That's why people will say when they meditate, I didn't get it. It didn't happen. Because we're used to judging it with a left brain analytical thing. But so Chokhmah and Bina could be used to help us to get out of that judgment and just to learn how to experience. And then allowing the experience, having just a little experience of right brain, gives us a foothold, right? Gives us a foothold that, oh my goodness, I did experience something. And feedback and all that can help. But the point is to allow ourselves to experience that. And then it becomes more accessible because we understand that it's always there.
How do we walk that into fear? Balance.
How do we walk that into?
Balance.
It happens naturally, basically. Because meditation in the Jewish system is a very grounded thing at the same time that it's very exalting. You know you're in your body. You know You're standing there. You know that you're following the halacha to say certain things and to do certain things, and yet you're in another, right? I call it Clark Kent and Superman at the same time. Every shul is in the old days in the Superman movies is the old Superman phone booth. So you go into it and you put on these capes, right? What we're supposed to do is to fly when we put on those capes. That's and really liftoff time. There are liftoff moments during the davening. But if everybody doesn't realize that, and everybody just is very, and that's why it's not supposed to say mundane speech in shul, because mundane pulls you down. It doesn't allow your right brain sensitivity to see that Torah and that arc that we're just opening the doors now is a new level of consciousness being revealed today. And we're holding up the Torah and we're seeing it, and then we're hearing it, right? And we're seeing and hearing the sounds, right? And it's a spiritual experience. But if you only have left brain eyes, it's a very boring thing. There's this picture of this on the front cover of a book by a guy who wrote a handbook for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur or something like that. I forgot his name. 3 people sitting, like nothing to do in shul. Anyway, there is a lot to do.
Survival kit.
Survival kit for the holidays, right? Yeah. Okay.
You could say perhaps a similar thing about Shabbos. That if you start talking about mundane things on Shabbos, it's very, very easy to just throw Shabbos out the window. It just disappears. And you end up back talking about everything, the time and the everything. It's gone. Very, very easy to throw it away. And that's what we do.
Yeah. That's the right sense.
Consciousness of Shabbos.
No,
it's something banal.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's aware of this. It's very important. On the other hand, if you are with somebody who's speaking mundane speech, so should you say, we don't talk like that, or let's change the subject, or should you say, that's awesome. That reminds me of something I learned in the Torah. Right. Shlomo Carlebach said, you're walking down the street, you see somebody doing something, a Jew, not keeping Shabbos. So he says, one way, when's your Shabbos? How could a Jew not keep Shabbos? But on the other hand, it's Shabbos. So your Shabbos should flow out to that person instead of that person's not Shabbos flowing into you. And he was very strong, Shlomo. Shlomo said, you're not keeping Shabbos. If you see that is not Shabbos, then you're not keeping Shabbos. And this is based on the Rosh Yom Tov. When he saw somebody smoking a pipe on Shabbat, he went back and did tshuva. He says, because I wouldn't be seeing such a thing if it wasn't something in me that wasn't keeping Shabbos. So the inside level of Chassidut has been a little bit lost, right? Everybody's like wearing the clothes. But we have to at least reconnect to that. So I want to say also that the next set of Sfirot is Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, is also right, left, center. It's a whole right, left, center system that we're in. And that our job is to live in the center, but to experience the extremes. Chesed is a very much of a chokhmah experience, but it's down here in the relational Sfirot. And it's the ability to see interconnections and to actually merge with other, right? I once thought of it as that like 2 people are like these concentric sets of circles. And as we first meet, our outer circles touch. And then as we get closer and know each other more, our circles begin to come together. And then we can actually meet. And then when we separate, we're not separate because we've met. So if you see us as these complex, right, systems that we are, and throw in a little right brain spice so you can start to see the world with different eyes. So that's the advantage of seeing the Sfirot. That's the practical advantage of seeing the Sfirot in 3 columns. Let's read about this in page 41 and 42. There's one more book. You need it here? Everybody like have something near them? Do you need something down there? Yeah, oh, so you have that. Okay, so try and make it that it's shareable. The array of the Sfirot, page 41. He brings a text from the Zohar, which is in all the Sidurim. I have a book just of this text with my commentary on it. If anybody wants it, it's called Patech Eliyahu, or Petichat Eliyahu. It's a beautiful text in the Tikkunei Zohar, in which Eliyahu Hanavi teaches us the main concepts of the hidden wisdom. And so Rabbi Kaplan brings it here. The 10 Sfirot are often depicted in an anthropomorphic array paralleling the human head and body. So there's 3 in the head and 7 in the body. This division is based on the fact that the highest sphere represent internal or mental processes, while the lower 7 manifest these processes externally. Thus, when referring to this division, the 7 lower Sfirot are called, well, he'd used the word before, that's why he uses the word still here. Anyway, those 7 lower Sfirot are called midot, attributes, but the highest level ones, the 3 highest ones, are called mochin, mentalities. Even though all 10 can be called midot, which is what he said before, but when you divide them into 3 and 7, here you have your 3 and 7 again, so you get the mochin above, and you have the midot, the attributes, the qualities with which we interact with each other, in the 7 below. We find a hint of this in the Tikkunei Zohar. Here the Sfirot are presented in an anthropomorphic array, which indicates their respective positions in relation to one another. So it starts by describing the lower 7. Chesed is the right arm, and Gevurah, restraint, is the left. Tiferet, beauty, is the body. So you have the 3, the triad of 1, 2, and 3 is right, left, and center up at this area. Netzach Hod Yesod is Netzach, dominance, Hod, empathy, and are the 2 legs, and Yesod, foundation, is the body's extremity, the sign of the Holy Covenant. And Malchut, kingship, is the mouth. It's a little bit complicated to bring the mouth in here, because it really is actually true that the eyes are Chochmah, the ears are Bina, the nose is Tiferet, the mouth is, the lips are Netzach and Hod, the tongue is Yesod, and the totality of all of them is Malchut. So you do have a whole 10 Sfirot up here in a little bit kind of a miniature way. But down here in the body, so what does it mean, the mouth of Malchut being down after you've talked about the legs? So there's 2 ways to talk about Malchut, and it's just, in the actually Aramaic original, it's called Malchut Peh, Torah Shebal Peh. Malchut Peh, Malchut is the mouth, the Torah of the mouth, the oral Torah. It's still a little bit not clear whatever, but that's not our what we're not going to go into. We're not going to go into it now. So but the division into right, left, and center is very interesting, because it's really also thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It's Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. It's the first bracha of the Amidah, the second bracha of the Amidah, and the third bracha of the Amidah. And then all the brachot of the Amidah are right, left, and center. A lot of what we have, unbeknownst to many, is a right, left, center. It means that I connect to both extremities and I try and embody it in the center. It's like maybe a little bit what Yochanan meant before, of how do I to go to the extreme, right, of intuitive, nonverbal, and then to come back into analytical, right? The Hasidim would very often stop learning Gemara, which is analytical, and go into a non-verbal state in order to reconnect, because you need to, where is this knowledge coming from? And like, it's much more than just prosaic knowledge. So they instituted to pull back and then to go in, to pull back, then to go in. And that was their balance. You can't just do left brain work. You must ground it in something higher. And that's what Torah knowledge is. It's Torah is not just mathematics or any kind of system of knowledge. It's a divine wisdom. And if it's not used this properly, if it's overemphasized, like I remember, I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, but people said to me, my husband is a Rambam. He's a rationalist. And he wouldn't like anything you're saying. So I said, go ask him if God is a rationalist. This rationalist stuff, everybody becomes rational. Fine, I'm also rational. And I'm not irrational, but I want to be super rational. I want to know what's the context within which rationality exists. The world is not a rationally explainable thing. Anyway, so we need to have both.
Just to the point there, it's interesting you mentioned that you need to go back and ground it. In that sense of grounding it, maybe that's what he means when he says
concrete. Good. I got the word ground from Paul Tillich, actually, and I use it in my writings. The grounded being. God is the grounded being. Even though that's ground, but what we mean now, grounded being is something actually deeper than existence. The is behind everything. Good. So this way of learning, anybody have any? I mean, he goes into this. This is chapter 4. Chapter 4 is the chapter called the Sfirot. That's before he goes into chapter 5, which is Keter. Before he goes into chapter 6, which is Chochmah and Bina. Chapter 7 is Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. And chapter 8 is Netzach and Yesod. And chapter 9 is Malchut. So before he does all of them, each one of them separately, he does all together, and he gives you a kind of systematic way of looking at it. And I hope that's helpful. On page 40, he goes into the meaning of the roots Samech Pei, Saf, and all of the different, actually Samech Pei Resh, but it's all based on Samech Pei, which is a Saf, which is a boundary. A Saf is a boundary. Even Ein Sof is there's no boundary, there's no end. But it's all the more so when you have a Resh at the end of it. A Sfar is the boundary of a country. And all these different ways of understanding the Sfirot as shining, illuminating brilliance at the same time that they give boundary, they give their numbers, but they also lead to beyond numbers. It's all locked up in this, like we said in Sefer Yetzirah, all locked in this idea of the word Sfira. Okay, then he goes on page 43 up to the 3 upper Sfirot. He has some very nice things on page 42. He just the beginning of what he's going to start to say in the other chapters, and you have it in a very clear way. The way this book was written was basically the transcripts from his classes, where I had them, and then I had also all the books that he wrote after this, or no, it's not even before, all the books that he wrote. And it was only that way that it could come together. Plus I had a book that was written based on the transcripts that was given to me and was told nobody can make heads or tails of it. And I read it, and only if you knew what Kabbalah was could you do it. But then I realized that I would go back into Rabbi Kaplan's books and see and add stuff from what he wrote in his books into what he said in class, and it became a book as a result of that. So this is very intense. People say you can only read a page or two at a time, but it's definitely a source book. It's something you can come back to. And the pages that I provided here are the map to the source book. So on page 43, the Tikkun Zohar continues and describes the three mochin, the mentalities. Chochma is the right brain, the seat of thought. Bina, understanding, is the heart, the power of the heart to understand. And even though we said before left brain, so it's both, and it's not a contradiction. But the Zohar is a fluidic text, and it will say that it's left brain in one place, and it's all throughout the actually writings of the Ari, and then it'll also say that it's the heart, because the two are so important that we connect the two. We connect our mind and our hearts, and that they operate as one. And the verse that's brought as a proof, as the hidden things belong to Hashem Elohenu, the Zohar says, Hashem is Chochma, Elohenu is Bina. Like I said before, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke is Chochma, is right brain, is unified, is all-inclusive, oceanic, and it's the Tzimtzum that was taken away from the first chapter of Genesis. There's only the name Elohim is mentioned in order to create a world of law and order and delineation and boundary and definition, in order that then we would be the ones who bring in the consciousness of Yud-Ke Vav-Ke. Because if he brings it in, then the whole point of the creation is lost. Is that we have to be the ones who become the channel, the tzinor for consciousness into the world. And in the course, if we do so, then we realize that Hashem is in the world already. So it's not just pulling down consciousness, it's pulling consciousness out of that which exists. The two meanings of the word Baruch is to pull down from above, to pull out from a state of hiddenness within the world. When we say a bracha on an apple, we're arousing the spiritual power of the godly word that brought that into existence. We're arousing that and arousing the spiritual aspect within physicality. So that Judaism is really a teaching of how to connect above spirit, above the physical, to come back into the physical with the ability to arouse the spiritual within the physical. A definition of Judaism is the absolute most powerful impenetration of heaven into earth. Not the separation of I only want heaven, or the separation of the West, which is I only want earth, but the Jew represents, and that's why we're in the Middle East, is because we're in the middle and slightly to the east, is that we are the ones who are, the teaching that we embody is that eating is a spiritual act, depending on how I do it, right? Not just meditation and not just prayer and Torah learning, but physical acts themselves become the, right? Especially when they're in the form of a mitzvah, a commandment, where we bind physicality up into the spiritual. So that was the verse that's brought as a proof that Hashem Elokeinu is Chochma and Bina. Keter Elyon, going up now to the next level up, supernal crown, is the Keter crown of Malchut, concerning which it is said, forgot the original, I declare the end from the beginning. Magid Acharit Mereshit. Mereshit Acharit. Thank you. Here we are introduced to the upper triad of the 10 Sfirot, Keter, Chochma, and Bina. The word Keter means literally crown, cranium, alludes to the transcendental nature of the first Sphira, which like a crown rests on top of the head, or like the cranium, which encases and surrounds the brain. Keter therefore transcends Chochma and Bina and is their source. It's the level of primal cause that precedes all creative activity. So he just goes on and on. He has a lot of good things to say. And it's an amazing book. But the point of these first few classes as an overview with questions and just grounding ourselves in the sense of grounding now with terms, with basics, is that as we're going to go into the last two chapters of part one, which are, or the last three, which is, we've done a little bit parts of Sufim last year. We didn't do Adam Kadmon, and we didn't do Tzimtzum. He goes up, 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 up at the very end of part one of Inner Space, which is one set of classes. And then he gives the second set of classes on the essence of Jewish meditation, with an eye towards prophecy. So he was very interested in the return to prophecy. And he wanted to, basically, almost every one of his books, he speaks about it at one point, that Rambam has told us that we have a tradition, and that Rambam emphasizes it, that prophecy will be reinstated before the Mashiach comes. And yet, how can prophecy be reinstated just out of nowhere if we don't do any preparation for it? It'll knock us out. We'll just like, you know what the prophets went through in order to be able to prophecy? He says we have to practice. So that's why he says Jewish meditation is the thing to learn, to relearn, to revive. So as a result of this book and other things, a lot of things change in the 90s because of this, this opening that he made with all the books that he translated and that he did, and the opening of what Judaica was before Kaplan was a very limited thing. There were some good books, but there wasn't the width and the breadth that he gave to it. So he did a tremendous thing, and he gave us a gift. So again, the overview has got us now into the Sfirot, and that's the last few minutes of today's class. He has a very special way of speaking about Chokhmah, Bina, about Keter. Let's just read what I have here at the bottom of the page, of the first page, and see if anything interests you. What is the relationship between Keter, which is called Ein, no thingness, and Malchut, which is called Ani, I? I'm asking you, what is the relationship between Ein and Ani? How are the letters of Ein and Ani arranged? And how does one tell us, and how does that teach us something about Keter and teach us something about Malchut? You want to look inside on page 49? I mean, this becomes a basis for a lot of things. I have a chart that I created based on this idea. But please, in the meantime, give me answers.
First of all, you said the same letters.
Same letters. And the placement is in Ani is the Yud is at the end. But the placement in Ein is that the Yud is in the middle. Even if we don't know anything about what the letters mean, right? So what does this chart say? It's set up in such a way that there's a 5-level system. Here's another similar chart.
In order to bring down the iron, you
have to go up. You have to go up into transpersonal, above our ego, and
that's how we become Ani.
And connect to something above. And then to bring that down, at first, there's a line above the lower star, right? It's a very narrow passageway. The more we go up and down, the more we can widen that passageway and connect the two polarities. That's the idea of an attempt to present this as a meditative thing. That Ani goes up to Ein, washes itself. It washes itself and merges into the infinite Ein, into the nothing. And after a while, and after you do it, you realize it's nothing to be afraid of. It's where I come from. In other meditative systems, it could be the match being consumed in the big fire, or the drop going back into the ocean. And then the ocean spits out the drop again. You're back on dry land, but you've been in the ocean. Right? You've been in the oneness. You've given up yourself in order to get more self, with a capital S, into your small self with a small s. So you've gone into Ein in order to come back with more of that, more of the power of the infinite into the Ani. Okay, so that's page 49. Here's the bottom of page 49. Or actually, up top. And the point of the two is that there are the two polarities, is to bring everything in between, so to speak. Everything in between is in order to bring more Ein into my Ani, and to lift my Ani more back up to my Ein. And everything in between is in order to help me do that, to soften the power of the Ein, of infiniteness as it comes into my finite being. I can't handle it if you don't transistor it down. But then when I do have some of that in me, then I can lift up higher, and I can be more capable now of having a higher experience. And then I want to bring that back down into my kelim, into my vessels, and build my vessels so that we are grounded, and again the grounding of earth, and we are also able to walk high. And that's what Am Yisrael needs, you see, because in the political, sociological situation, the geopolitical situation, right? The Torah is huge. The Torah is about history. So Kabbalah is not just about seemingly spiritual energies and internal meditative experiences. It's about how God runs history and how he creates the world and how we're part of this system. And the Messianic age is a certain transition into a whole new level of consciousness that's been there the whole time, but so where history itself changes. So time, space, and consciousness, time, all of time and eternity, space, which is the world as we know it, and then infinite worlds above this, and then consciousness, our soul, and our connection to higher souls and to souls who have been here in the past, and we ourselves have been here in the past. So it can't be reduced to red strings and formula of saying words that are meaningless. It has to be like I really start to get that Hashem wants to teach me something. And my whole life has been a learning, that this is a school, and that I want to open up to that and ask Hashem to be able to learn more. And I want it to be grounded in mitzvot and in love and in respect and in the basics, Yirat Hashem, and the Emunah and Hashgacha Pratit, and the ability to know that life is meaningful. And it's not just Kabbalah or Pshat. It can't be. In fact, that's another chart here. It's also a 5-level system. There's Pshat, Remez, Drush, Shod, and Razin. What is it? Razin de Razin. It's a 5-level system that when you go up to the top and you come back down into the bottom, you see that all of the Pshat also is everything. It has everything you need. The quote from the Gaon of Vilna: when one understands the Sod clearly, he will then understand everything else clearly, namely the Pshat, the Remez, the Drush, and the Sod. Conversely, as long as one does not understand the Sod, he will not even be able to understand the Pshat. So the idea of going up and coming down, of going right and left and then coming back into center, right, are dynamical realities that we can internalize in our lives. And then we can see that they're like Volkswagens and Mitsubishis, and like they're all over the place. That's the whole Torah is filled with right, left, and center, up and down. It's a dynamical system. It's asking me to grow. It's asking me to manifest the highest level of my own potential.
Can I ask you a question?
Please do.
Is the Razin kind of like paralleling a little bit? I don't know if you're familiar with the Menachem stories or not, but the Devar betoch Devar, like the thing within the thing, like knowing the thing within the thing.
Well, lahavin devar mitoch devar, so the definition of bina. Lahavin devar mitoch, to understand one, to understand one thing from another, to understand one thing from many.
Right. So that's like bina.
It's a bina.
It's taking it apart.
But really, bina, relative to the 7 lower sefirot, is totally unified consciousness. Only relative to chokhmah is it called analytical. But bina, as a mother of the 7 lower sefirot, it has this double aspect where it's completely analytical, but it's also the womb within which chokhmah develops itself. So there's a divine name associated with every one of the sefirot. Oh, they disappeared.
Okay, it's a part of
There's a name of Hashem associated with all the sefirot. So the name associated with Chokhmah is Ekyeh. That's the top. The right here is Yah. That's Chokhmah. And the left here is Bina. What's Bina? That's a very interesting thing. It has Yud Kei Vav Kei, but the voweling of it, the sound of it is E-O-I, Elohim. The vowel of Elohim on the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei. It says in Vayet Chanan al Hashem Be'et Ahi. What is that? Hashem Elohim. And it's written Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, Yud Kei Vav Kei. We say Elohim, even though it's written Yud Kei Vav Kei, because the voweling is it's a Bina is said to be is said to be totally mercy, but it's a smidgen, the beginning, the root of what will be Elohim, what will be delineation, judgment, law, order. Yeah. Anyway, interesting. So every sphere has a name. All these things get very interesting. All these things are not all of it is in the inner space. There's other things here too.
So would Bina be under the right then?
Well, no. Again, everything's relative. A mommy is male vis-a-vis her children and female vis-a-vis her husband.
Right.
So we are female vis-a-vis God, and we can be male and female vis-a-vis each other. And we all have male, female, female, male. So the right, left, the male, female, all these polarities is what creation is made in terms of, for the Gemara in Baba Batra 75 says, Kol mashabara HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamo lo bera'o ela zahav v'nekiva. Everything that the Holy One, blessed be He, created in His world, He did not create except, meaning to say it's a double negative, He created everything male, female. So, right. So the spherotic system is it was the science. It was the science of consciousness before we had science. It was the science of the mind, the science of knowing the inner level of reality through your own mind. We didn't have a telescope, we didn't have a microscope. We had our minds. So the Sefer Yetzirah is an ancient book said to be attributed to Abraham, or to Rabbi Akiva, and it came traditionally from Abraham, and even before that from Adam, is the science of consciousness itself, of the interpenetration, or the existence of physical reality from spiritual laws, right? So that, just like Pythagoras said that God's a mathematician, so by us, God is a speaker of letters. And letters by us are energy frequencies. He created the world with sound. He created the world with light frequencies and sound frequencies. That's why we lift up the Torah and then we read it. And the Ashkenazim read it and then lift it up to see, to hear, sound, light, sound, light. That's enough for tonight. Unless, of course, I love questions, but I don't want to drill everybody into the ground with my questions and answers, but I wanted to bring it out and bring it alive. And this class, basically, you make this class what you can make this class if you come in having read anything and have questions. That's what I want. If you want to really understand any particular issue, write to me, call me, speak it in class. I'll come back the next week with more. It's a lot of left brain, and then, if you'll allow me, I'll take you into the right brain, and we'll do meditations.
Interesting, just what you said. Our Sinai, we saw the sound, we heard the light.
Yeah, no, that's
We heard
the whole thing. That's why Sfardim and Ashkenazim, they complement each other by doing Hagba. The Sfardim do Hagba first. You have to see the letters, right? You have to actually try and get close enough to point. And the Ari says to point with this finger, not with this finger.
Really?
Most 99% of people don't do it, but whatever. I've stopped telling people anything. I just do it. I just do what I know I have to do. This is what you point at. This is called etzba. Ze-eli v'anvei. So you try and point at the letter that begins with your name. And you try and receive the illumination. And then you sit down and you hear. So you're at Sinai. And if you're thinking of other things, if you're not there, and the whole davening leads up to this incredible place to receive that Torah. That's why a husband whose wife is in her 9th month is very often given the mitzvah of opening up the doors, or the door, or the paint, or the curtain, or whatever it is of the Aron HaKodesh, and take out the Torah and bring it to the congregation. What's the metaphor? It's a birth. And birth comes after a union. So the Shemona Esrei is the union that at the pinnacle, in other words, like the Baal Shem Tov said, please forgive me, this is not meant to be, you have to have a clean mind, is that just as a husband and wife take their clothes off slowly, each one, and then and then they're finally completely naked, and then their union, from that union comes a birth, right? So the prayer is set up in the same way that the prayers lead up to a oscillation between two polarities of our existence, and at ever more subtle vibratory. And we jump up above the polarities. We close our eyes in the Shema. Hashem Elokeinu, duality. Hashem Echad, we jump into oneness. And you're supposed to stay there. You're supposed to experience some kind of a merging. You're supposed to allow yourself to go into that place. So that's why meditation is so important as a practice, because you can't practice it while you're davening. It's two different things. Until you can join them, it's only after you've done a little meditation and a little davening. Little meditation, little davening. You practice certain things, become aware of your breath, become aware of the subtleties of your own system, and then you now slowly but surely try and apply them when you say words, when you're standing silently in the Amidah and you're breathing. And it says, Elohei Abraham, and you go to the right, and Hey Yitzchak to the left, Yaakov to the middle, Gadol to the right, Gibor to the left. It's a right-left center system. It's there, it's subtle. It's not meant to be in the newspapers. It's meant to be me, personally, me with God, you with God. The Hashem allows us to get to a point where even on the Amidah is called I, thou. But above the Amidah is called Nefilat Apayim, which is falling on our face, which is no more I, which is the complete giving up of I. And then we receive the Torah. So these are wonderful things. We're going to stop here. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, please. Bless you all. Bless us all. Payment, signing up. I'm so off the ground here. Please forgive me. This is important for the yeshiva, for this class. If you're not already signed up, sign in your name and your email. Or if you are, then just put a check. And it's 30 shekels for the class. One second, just a second.
I'm still
Okay.
off the ground.
All right.